class. This is a review of Test 1, Fall 2013, Principles of Macroeconomics. You'll also find a PDF file of this answer key posted to Blackboard. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go over these answers so you get an idea of where they came from. So on the first question, there were a series of short answers. Let's see if I can get this thing to move. There we are. The first was, I've spent a considerable amount of time to impress upon you the idea of non-obvious substitutes. Okay, so this is all discussed in the little video I produced called, or the document I produced called What is a Substitute? It's in the course documents of Blackboard. And basically, obvious substitutes are things like sweaters and jackets, but a non-obvious substitute would be a sweater and a purse. So for example, if you were looking for a gift for your girlfriend, a sweater or a purse might be substitutes, or dinner or a movie might be substitutes if you were looking for something to do. Those are non-obvious substitutes. Then in the second part of that question, I actually give you one, like, can a new car be a substitute for a new boat? And the answer is, well, yes, they can. The answer is not that, well, if you lived in Louisiana and your house was on the bayou, or if you lived in Venice. It has nothing to do with that. Even if you lived in Somerville, a new boat can be a substitute for a new car, because they both compete for the consumer's discretionary dollars. If you already had a car, you might be thinking, well, I could get a new car and it would be so great, or I could keep the car I have and get a boat, or I could keep the car I have and put a down payment on a house, or whatever. So whatever competes for the consumer's dollar, even though they might physically be very different and perform different functions, they are substitutes. And the third one was about what comes out of the washing machine in that video, The Magic of a Washing Machine. And what comes out is books. And the guy was trying to make the point that a washing machine frees up labor time for people to do other things. And in his particular case, the mother was going to read books to their children. So that's all you really needed to get full credit. And you should watch that video, The Magic of Washing Machines. It's in the course documents. And in this case, there was a little question. The thing that comes out of the washing machine is a complement. There are things that you use together. You buy a washing machine, you buy children's books. In the last one, our textbook lists natural resources as one of the factors of production, but Don Boudreau argues that there's no such thing as a natural resource, and I had posted that essay to you. It's out there in the course documents, and there is its title. I hope you've read it. If you haven't, you need to. Okay, so here are the answers to the supply and demand thing. Now, you might notice that there are two different versions of this test. The questions are all exactly the same, but they come in a slightly different order. So as you look at this, make sure that the order is the same as what you have. And here you can see down here. So in this particular version that I have up, the first one was about the importation of sugar. So if we strike down all those restrictions on foreign sugar, lots of foreign sugar would come into the United States, and it would depress the demand curve for American sugar. The supply curve for American sugar would stay the same, since it's just a schedule of all the possible prices and the corresponding amounts that they would provide. Quantity demanded and quantity supplied of American sugar would fall, and the price of American sugar would fall. In the second one, what would happen in the market for U.S. produced candy? Well, you have to realize that sugar is a major input in the production of candy. I hope all of you would know that. And sugar is going to get cheaper, even whether it's American sugar or foreign sugar. It's suddenly going to be cheaper in the United States. So that's an input, right? Price of inputs. So the supply curve increases, quantity demanded increases, quantity supplied decreases, and the price will fall. In the third one, this is the hard question. The first two I thought were easy. What would happen in the market for other crops that might be grown in Florida, Louisiana, Texas, and the American Northern Plains, where they currently grow sugar, either beet sugar or cane sugar? And what would happen is that the opportunity cost of growing sugar would go down, since it's not as much money in it. The price went down, and those farmers would look for other things to plant. And so there would be an increase in the supply curve of whatever those other things are. Those other crops, probably in the American Northern Plains, is probably wheat. I have no idea what it would be down on the southern coast, but whatever they are, the supply curve would increase for those things. Quantity demanded and quantity supply would increase, and the price of those things would fall. Now the next two are about a new technology called fracking. And this new technology is driving down the price of natural gas and oil. It's really quite dramatic. So I read a couple weeks ago that the price of natural gas is about a third of what it was even 4 years ago. Can you imagine? Okay, so the first question was, based only on this, what is happening in the markets for oil and natural gas? Well, it's this new technology, and that's the determinant of supply curves. So the demand curve stays the same because the buyers might not even be aware that this is going on. The supply curve has increased, quantity demanded and quantity supplied have both increased, and of course the price has decreased. And in the last one, based on this, what will happen in the market for energy efficient cars? This was the hard one. You know, there's so much rhetoric about energy efficient cars that people just think the demand curve for those things will go up forever. Perhaps it will, but the question is based only on this, and that is that energy is now going to be cheaper. Based only on this, what would happen in the market for energy efficient cars? Well, there would be less demand for them. People would have a tendency to buy bigger cars and bigger boats, all kinds of stuff. So the demand curve for energy efficient cars would fall, the supply curve would stay the same, quantity demanded and quantity supplied would decrease, and the price of energy efficient cars would fall. I was kind of surprised how many people fail to get that. Think of it in the opposite direction, and then it's really obvious. Suppose instead of this new technology called fracking, suppose instead that something terrible had happened and that energy just got more and more and more expensive. So in that case, I hope all of you can see that the demand curve for energy efficient cars would increase, and all these answers would be the opposite. Okay, that's supply and demand. I haven't drawn them for you here, but if you have any trouble understanding where those answers came from, you should draw them out. I was surprised at how many of you hadn't done that on the test. Alright, here's Roman numeral 3. This exact question can be found in a document that I published out there on Blackboard called Need Help with Production Possibilities Curves? As I recall, it's a video. Okay, so this was actually in that video, and it says, imagine there's a technological innovation that helps in the production of food but not in housing. It would cause the production possibilities curve to shift in this way. Again, pay close attention to the exam you have, because on some exams food is on the vertical axis and on other exams housing is there. So your graph might be correct and be opposite, might be down here. So look and see which exam you have, but whichever one you have, the production possibilities curve should rise up a little on the axis that has food on it and be exactly the same on the axis that has housing. And then there was something you had to answer. Is it possible, with this change, is it now possible to produce more of both food and housing? And yes, it is. Even though the technology only helps in the production of food, it is possible, look at this, it is possible to use it to get more of both. And basically what's happening there is you're just taking some resources away from the production of food, since you can now make that easier than before. Take those resources away and devote them to housing, and you can have more of both. Part B is also in that video. Briefly and clearly explain why the production possibilities curve is concave to the origin. It has to do with the fact that the factors of production, especially labor, but really all of them, the factors of production are all different, and some are better suited to produce one thing as opposed to another. Sometimes thinking of it in the opposite way helps students to see the answer. Imagine we lived in a world where everyone had exactly the same skill sets, that we were all maybe clones of each other. Then in that case it wouldn't make any difference who was working on the production of food and who was working on the production of housing, and the production possibilities curve in a world like that would be much more linear, much I don't want to use the word flat, but the bow in the production possibilities curve would be much less, be more like a straight line. Okay, define the economic term normal good. This was in supply and demand lesson number 2. It's one of the determinants of demand curves was income. A normal good is one that when your income goes up, you consume more. When your income goes down, you would consume less. The opposite of a normal good would be an inferior good. Did you read the short essay titled I Pencil? Okay, so it was in a document that I posted out there called Complexity and Simplicity of Markets, and there were several. There was an essay by Milton Friedman. Actually, there was a video by Milton Friedman. There was an essay by another gentleman whose name I can't remember. There was also an essay by the writers for the British version of Top Gear. And I can't remember if that video iPhone was out there or not, but if it's not, you could do a Google search and find it. They all argued the same basic idea, and that is that markets provide an efficient way for all kinds of skills to come together and do stuff. And the great thing about the essay iPencil is a pencil is such a simple thing, but even a pencil, no one, absolutely no one in the world knows exactly how to make a pencil. Instead, some people know how to crush the graphite, and other people maybe know how to, chemists know how to make the paint that paints the pencil, and so forth. You should see some of those videos to get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so here are the math ones, and this particular one, supply and demand with unit taxes, was found in the course documents under a title called Supply and Demand with Taxes. I'm sorry if you didn't view that and you didn't master this, but here are the answers when the quantity demanded function was 1600 minus 2p. Make sure that's the test you've got. Let me scroll down a minute and show you. Take a look at those answers, and then if I scroll down here, here is the same question where the demand curve is slightly different. Some of you have this this test, and these are the answers that go for you. So there are your answers. Alright, so Roman numeral 5 was another supply and demand problem, except this was the one about price ceilings and price floors. The answers to this were found in a lesson called Supply and Demand lesson number 5. Here are the answers, and I think the only difference in the two tests was in one test I put price ceiling first, and in the other test I put price floor first. I think everything else is the same. So there's one version right there, and the other version's answers are down here, slightly different. I think all the algebra is the same. The only difference is down here about price floors and price ceilings. By the way, I ended up not grading this square right here. See this square that I've kind of marked out? I didn't grade that square on either test because it turned out that the price, let's see, the price floor, the binding price floor at $200, turned out that it was so high that the quantity demanded was actually 0. And I thought that might be a little tricky for everyone, so I just gave you credit for this square no matter what you put there. No matter what you put there, you should have got credit. Okay, so that's a review of the test. The only other thing that you might want to know is how it's graded. You'll see little marks on your exam. Should you pick it up in my office, you'll see little red marks on each page and then a number with a circle around it. So for example, on this first page, let's say you got the first one right and you lost 2 points on the second one, and you lost 5 points on the third one, and you got the fourth one right. You'd see a little -2 and a little -5, and then a big -7 with a circle around it, which is the sum of the points off for that page. And so that's how I grade them. That's how I add up all the points off. All right, hope you found that helpful. Good luck.